The Strait of Hormuz has become the center of one of the most dangerous crises in the modern Middle East. Ever since the United States and Israel launched strikes on Iran earlier this year, this narrow waterway has transformed into the world's biggest economic pressure point. Today, President Trump again demanded that Iran reopen the Strait of Hormuz, because if it stays closed, the consequences could spread far beyond the Middle East. Oil prices are surging, shipping routes are collapsing, global inflation is rising again, and millions of ordinary people around the world are already feeling the impact. But why is this tiny strip of water so important? And why has it become Iran's most powerful weapon? The Strait of Hormuz is one of the most critical trade routes on Earth. Nearly 20% of the world's oil supply passes through this narrow channel every single day. Massive tankers carrying crude oil from Gulf nations must travel through it before reaching global markets. Much of that oil goes to Asia, but the entire world depends on its stability. And it's not just oil. Natural gas, fertilizer, industrial metals, sulfur, and even helium pass through these waters. In many ways, the global economy breathes through the Strait of Hormuz. So when the conflict escalated and Iran effectively shut the strait down, the shock waves spread instantly across the planet. Oil prices jumped from around $70 a barrel to more than $100 at the peak of the crisis. In the United States, gas prices surged past $4 a gallon. Shipping insurance costs exploded. Cargo companies began avoiding the Persian Gulf entirely, and global supply chains once again entered crisis mode. What makes this situation so dangerous is that Iran doesn't need to defeat the United States militarily. It simply needs to create enough fear and instability to choke global trade. And that strategy has worked surprisingly well. Iran's naval forces and allied groups have repeatedly targeted or threatened ships in the region. Even limited attacks were enough to scare insurers and commercial fleets away. Without insurance protection, many companies simply refuse to send ships through the strait. The result? A waterway that is technically open, but practically paralyzed. And that gives Iran enormous leverage. President Trump has responded with mixed messages. At one point, he threatened to bomb Iranian oil facilities and critical infrastructure unless the strait reopened immediately. Later, he downplayed the crisis, claiming the United States could survive without the waterway. But behind the scenes, pressure is mounting. Because the longer this crisis continues, the more damage it causes to the global economy, and the more political pressure Washington faces at home. Iran understands this. It knows that rising fuel prices, inflation, and supply shortages can weaken public support for the war. And despite heavy military strikes, Iran has shown a remarkable willingness to absorb pain while continuing to hold the strait hostage. In fact, soaring oil prices may actually be helping Tehran financially. Higher prices mean higher revenues for Iranian exports that still reach international buyers. That gives Iran another reason to keep the pressure on. Military experts say there may be very little the United States can do to permanently secure the Strait of Hormuz without launching a full-scale invasion of Iran. Keeping the waterway open against Iran's political will could require a massive and prolonged military operation, something Washington may not be prepared to risk. That's why the strait has become Iran's ultimate bargaining chip. The war may have started over regional security and Iran's nuclear ambitions. But now, control of global trade itself has become part of the battlefield. And for President Trump, finding a way out is becoming increasingly difficult. Casualties are rising, economic pressure is growing, and public frustration is beginning to affect political support back home. At this stage, even reopening the strait temporarily could be seen as a major diplomatic victory. But no one knows where Iran's breaking point truly lies. What is clear is this: the Strait of Hormuz is no longer just a waterway. It is the jugular vein of the global economy. Thank you for watching EkoVerse.